ladies and gentlemen, emails from the Jeffrey Epstein estate proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that the Epstein situation is not a hoax. And I quote, "That dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim, Jeffrey Epstein victim, spent hours at my house with him," meaning Trump. "He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc." The accuser says that Ghislaine Maxwell lied to Todd Blanche. I believe, from what I'm looking at, that these emails prove it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. I thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. Also, subscribe to the channel. Like I always say, if this is your first time here, hit the little bell notification if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, an epic storm has hit the political sphere, if you will. New emails, not from the government, but from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. And it's a bombshell. It's a bombshell. For so many days, like I said, there's been certain things that Donald Trump would come out and say. He would be like, it's a hoax, it's a hoax, it's a hoax, it's a hoax, right? The email, this one right here, proves beyond the shadow of a doubt that the Jeffrey Epstein situation is not a hoax, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how certain people, I would say deal with themselves. As you can see with this email right here, ladies and gentlemen, you got to understand a hoax is something people try to come up with to try to prevent you from doing something. If you look at the date on this email, the date on this email is April 2nd, 2011 at 7:09 p.m. And it is from Jeffrey Epstein, gvacation@gmail.com, right? To Ghislaine Maxwell, sent, right? And this is the original message I believe was being forwarded. When you look at this was before Donald Trump was seeking any kind of political office. This was during the time that Jeffrey Epstein, I believe, was being prosecuted down in Florida for the situation involving being a child predator, pedophilia, or whatever you want to call it, right? But if you read what it says, and Ghislaine Maxwell recently testified, and I'm going to get into that part about it also. Ghislaine Maxwell recently testified to, I think, Assistant Attorney General Todd Blanche, if you will, in regards to what she knew in Donald Trump's, what they would say, alleged involvement in the Jeffrey Epstein situation. And it seems as though when she testified, she basically said what was probably, I don't know if it was written on paper or what she needed to say And we know now, beyond a shadow of a doubt, why she's at the the prison camp that she's in after being charged with such heinous crimes that she has been charged with. She is now at a camp, and she has the time of 20 years, ladies and gentlemen. 20 years. But she's at a prison camp in Texas. Federal prison camp, if you will. And so, with that being said, nobody else has received this kind of treatment before in history involving such heinous crimes that Ghislaine Maxwell has been convicted of. But now we understand why. We understand why. To me, it seems to me like when you think about the government shutdown and all of those things, and what people were saying, hey, they trying to do this to stop the Epstein files and all of these other things. I really don't care what party it is. The stopping of the 42 million people who receive assistance from the government dealing with the taxpayer money. But today, not too long ago, the government was reopened. Donald Trump didn't take any questions after he signed the paper, after he talked about Obamacare and how much of a failure it was. But they only kicked the can down to January. We'll be back here again visiting the same situation involving the funding of the government. But on the same day, these emails were dropped. And if you read it, it's from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell, and it says, and Ghislaine responds by saying, I have been thinking about that. I want you to think about that as you read what her response was in reference to what Jeffrey Epstein sent her. Jeffrey Epstein said, I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump, right? Victim, ladies and gentlemen, it says victim, and I think that was redacted on purpose. I don't think that was in the email. I think they're trying to cover whoever name that was up. Victim spent hours at my house with him. That is meaning Donald Trump. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. As to 75% where, we don't know. But the information, if you read the confidential, the information contained in this communication is confidential, may be attorney-client privilege, may constitute inside information, and is intended for the use of the addressee. Ladies and gentlemen, this was released by Jeffrey Epstein's estate. So they got, Jeffrey Epstein's family has got possession of damn near probably everything that the FBI and the Department of Justice has in their possession. And this was released, I believe, to Congress, and they released these emails. So in that one email right there, very important, but listen to this. Ghislaine Maxwell just did an interview with the attorney, Assistant Attorney General Todd Blanche. And I want you to see what she said in regards to this. Now, remember, it says a victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. Check it out. Now, as you look at the top of that, you see, I have been thinking about that. Ghislaine Maxwell said in response to the email that Jeffrey Epstein sent her. Now, let me show you this. Watch this. Ladies and gentlemen, right here, in August of this year, earlier this year, this was released. The testimony from Ghislaine Maxwell's interview with Todd Blanche, right? So you heard what she said there. This is, but the new emails call her claims into question, right? Speaking of Trump and Epstein's relationship, when she talked to Todd Blanche earlier this year from a federal prison, Maxwell said in her testimony, the transcript which was released in August, I don't think they were close friends. Or I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance, right? Well, at that time, Donald Trump wouldn't have been president because this was in 2011, ladies and gentlemen. I don't believe that Donald Trump had any aspirations for public office at that particular time. But look at what she said. I don't think they were close friends, or I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. Now, I want you to take that. This tells me that somebody, when you read the emails, for all of the people that have been going over these emails, this tells me that somebody saw the email. Listen, I'm going to show you again. Watch this, man. Look. This tells me that somebody saw this email right here. Right? I want you to, because, see, watch this. Watch this. This email right here, I'm going to go back to that. This email right here, you see what Jeffrey Epstein says, victim spent hours at my house with him. I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. And they said victim, whoever her name was, redacted. Victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. Look at the house part. Look at the house part. And I want you to pay very close attention to Ghislaine Maxwell's testimony. And when she says right here, this basically knowing that she knew about it. And she says, well, I have been thinking about that. So she knew about that. Right? I've been thinking about that. Like, why didn't, Donald hasn't said anything. He hasn't spoke up. He hasn't said anything. But check this out. So she says, I have been thinking about that. Now I'm going to take you back. Look at the part where it says, victim spent hours at my house with him. Now listen to what her convenient response to whatever the question was that Todd Blanche had asked her at that time. Watch this. Pay close attention. And you're going to see what was attempted to be done. And then you got to understand that these emails did not come from the DOJ, but I believe that the DOJ is in possession of these emails because they took all of Jeffrey Epstein's emails, electronic communications, and all of those things. Look at this one more time so that you understand what she's trying to do. Right? Because the intention is not to release or try not to release the Jeffrey Epstein files because they've been calling it what Donald Trump calls a lot of things a hoax. Right? It's a hoax. Well, let me say something about that. If you don't really understand, Ghislaine Maxwell is doing 20 years and it ain't no hoax. Jeffrey Epstein, they said, committed suicide because he was locked up for child pedophilia. That wasn't no hoax. He was really in the Metropolitan Detention Center in New York where they say he hung himself. That's not a hoax. All of these things right here that are happening are actually real life matters. But once again, remember what Jeffrey Epstein said to her about Trump was not the only dog that hadn't barked yet, and victim spent hours at my house with him. Listen, the new emails call her claims into question. Speaking of Trump and Epstein's relationship, Ghislaine said in her testimony, the transcript of which was released in August, I don't think they were close friends. ladies and gentlemen, we know that's a lie. From the pictures we've seen, the videos we've seen, they were pretty much kick-it buddies. Ghislaine is in pictures with Donald Trump and the whole 9 yards, right? But just listen, I don't think they were close friends, right? No, you can listen to that it's a lie right then and there. It's like, I don't think they were close friends. Or I certainly never witnessed the president. He wasn't president then. She should have just said Donald Trump. Donald Trump in I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. Think about that. Why would she say in his house, for instance? If you're not paying attention to this, you're going to miss it like water on a rock. Water on a rock. What was attempted to be done here was to exonerate Donald Trump, or basically disassociate Donald Trump from even being close to Jeffrey Epstein. But we know that that's not true. What they're trying to tell us is that the pictures and the videos and the things that we've seen and the letters to Jeffrey Epstein and all of those things, please don't believe what your eyes are seeing. It's all a hoax. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not a hoax. It's not a hoax. The email that I just showed you before this was sent in 2011. Jeffrey Epstein or nobody else would have any reason at that particular time to want to harm Donald Trump, try to mention his name in ill will. It was an observation that he was making, I guess, based on the pressure that was being put on him. Listen, but the newly released emails suggest Maxwell was aware of Trump being at Epstein's house. So why would she tell Todd Blanche? I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. You don't think Ghislaine remembered that email from Jeffrey Epstein? You don't think that was probably talked about, probably before the tape recorder was being turned on? Ladies and gentlemen, the accuser, right? The accuser, one of the accusers, basically is saying now that she wants to see all of the Epstein, and they're supposed to be voting on releasing the Epstein files in totality. There's also videos, ladies and gentlemen. There's videos of various people, high-profile people, allegedly, that perhaps are on video. But then, listen, these emails were released earlier today, ladies and gentlemen, and it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that Ghislaine Maxwell lied to Todd Blanche. I'm going to say it again, ladies and gentlemen. If Ghislaine Maxwell, I don't know, like I said, so the plan that they had, like I said, the plan that they had, it didn't work. And this is proof that it didn't work. Look, newly released emails suggest Maxwell was aware of Trump being at Epstein's house, at least as of 2011. After Epstein in the email referenced someone spending hours at my house with Trump, Maxwell responds, I have been thinking about that. And they tried to get in contact with Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney. Attorney didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. Today, ladies and gentlemen, Wednesday. That ain't the only thing that they put out there. This is very important because when we talk about being honest, Donald Trump is calling it a hoax. This doesn't say that Donald Trump did anything wrong, illegal, anything. This just speaks to the knowledge that he had of being affiliated with somebody who was a pedophile. And evidently he thought it was cool enough to hang around Jeffrey Epstein and not say nothing. in regards to that. But today, when his press secretary, she speaks out, she's not even qualified to speak on this. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because this was before she was even being considered to be his press secretary at the White House. She's not qualified to speak on it. The only people that are qualified to speak on what it is Ghislaine in that email, Jeffrey Epstein in that email, and Donald Trump as to why his name was mentioned in the email, right? And had he been at Jeffrey Epstein's house, because Ghislaine Maxwell was trying to distance Donald Trump with her testimony to Todd Blanche. But we have come to understand with the email that was released earlier today that that's a lie. It's a lie. People talk about the 34 felonies that Donald Trump got. Like I said, once again, ladies and gentlemen, do you know that you cannot deliver the mail being a felon? But yet you can be president of the United States of America. So many people had talked about the release of the Epstein, when they weren't in power, when, it was, things were uncertain, release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files. You know how when they tell black criminals, when they tell African-American criminals, I'm going to deal with this factually. When they tell black criminals, they say, well, if you didn't do anything, you don't have anything to worry about. You know how they do that? Well, if you didn't do anything, you don't have anything to worry about. Right? Make that same thing apply to the Epstein files. If you didn't do anything, or if there's nothing there, if there's a nothing there, then release the files for the world to see. Ladies and gentlemen, the email that I just showed you, right? The email that I just showed you did not come from the government. It came from Epstein's estate. It came from Epstein's family. Fatima Barrett, what's happening? Shout out to everybody in the chat. It doesn't matter whether she wants Trump to pardon her, because a pardon would almost certainly be, in some ways, it would speak even more, even louder than these emails, ladies and gentlemen. You see it. What Jeffrey Epstein say? I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. The victim. What victim? And what was she doing with Donald Trump at Epstein's house? Victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. And I'm 75% there. And Ghislaine Maxwell says, I've been thinking about that. So basically, she lied to Todd Blanche. And what they were trying to do by releasing the transcript, see, they wanted to release the transcript to try to show us that, well, hey, Ghislaine, and that's why she got moved to the prison that she got moved to. She went from a maximum security federal prison to what you would consider a camp. Now we understand why. She was trying to cover up for Donald Trump. So now that these emails have come out, the question is why? How deep does this hole really go? If the family, the Jeffrey Epstein estate, just released these emails. But that's not it. Watch this. Here, ladies and gentlemen, this Michael Wolff is an author. And Michael Wolff is currently being sued or filing a lawsuit, a counterclaim, I believe, against Melania Trump. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to pay attention to this. This email was in 2015. You ready? From Michael Wolff. It's from Michael Wolff, right, to Jeffrey Epstein. It says, I think you should let him hang himself. Listen, they talking about something that we are not privy to. But who are they talking about? I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, what house? The same house that Ghislaine Maxwell, according to the accuser, lied about, and according to what we understand now from that email, based on her testimony, that was a lie. Listen, I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency, right? You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, who they talking about? This 15. If it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. This is Michael Wolff talking to Jeffrey Epstein about Donald Trump running for president and talking about being on Jeffrey Epstein's plane or at his house where the shenanigans were going down, right? Ghislaine Maxwell comes and tells Todd Blanche in August, what? I've never seen him. I can't recall him being at the house. You don't think that they knew about these emails? When she specifically went back to the fact that she mentioned, I don't recall him being at the house. But this is Michael Wolff talking and writing an email to Jeffrey Epstein in regards to Donald Trump, right? And Michael Wolff saying, I think you should let him hang himself if he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house. Then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that politically generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt, meaning a debt of Donald Trump owing Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy. Listen to me. Listen, y'all, because this has been going on. He'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of a political correctness, which Donald Trump is now calling a hoax. So Michael Wolff was on this a long time ago in reference to what he was talking about and talking about that, right? Which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. Think about it, right? On Tuesday, December 15th, 2015, at 11:52 p.m., Jeffrey Epstein wrote, if we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? Meaning, Jeffrey Epstein is sitting there. This is how cool Jeffrey Epstein, or close, should I say, Jeffrey Epstein was to Donald Trump. Jeffrey Epstein, it says, if we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? He's asking Michael Wolff this, right? On Tuesday, December 15th, at approximately 8 p.m., Michael Wolff wrote, I hear CNN's planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in scrum afterwards. Amazing. Wow. You can't make this shit up, man. You can't make this shit up. It's so sickening. It's so sad. You know, that when people talk about it, and you got I think her name's Caroline Levitt, the White House spokesperson, when she gets up there and she says that she's not even qualified to speak. This is 2015, ladies and gentlemen, and 2011. The only person that can speak on this right now is Donald Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell. See, but Ghislaine already her credibility is done. Zero. Nothing that she says is believable anymore in relation to anything. And that's the reason why the people want the Epstein files released. Because, see, the Epstein files are going to reveal things like this. These are emails where nobody has the benefit of, and you can see the difference in 2011 versus 4 years later, right? In 2015, they talking about Donald Trump running for president. 2011, they talking about him being at the house and not being mentioned, or him talking or being mentioned or anything. And it references the police chief, correct? And Jeffrey Epstein saying, I'm 75% there. But this right here, Jeffrey Epstein is basically saying, and we were able to craft an answer for him. What do you think it should be? As to CNN asking about Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Because it was hot news at that particular time. They knew about the pictures. They knew about all of those things. So then, when you see this right here, right? You think about and you go back to this. Because Jeffrey, so what do you think? If we were able to craft an answer, because Michael Wolff was already talking about, you know what? He'll say Jeffrey Epstein's a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in the Trump regime, right? But then you got to go back here to this email. Or better yet, to this right here. You got to go back to this. And like I said, once again, once you get here, you understand the big picture. You understand the cover-up or the attempted cover-up. That's what I would like to call it based on what this is. Listen, but the new emails calls her claims into question. Speaking of Trump and Epstein's relationship, Maxwell said in her testimony, the transcript of which was released in August, I don't think they were close friends. But there you just seen Jeffrey Epstein trying to formulate an answer for Donald Trump. And CNN going to ask him a question about their relationship. Jeffrey Epstein was asking Michael Wolff, so what do you think we should, we could formulate an answer for him. What do you think we should say? That's what a friend would do. That's what somebody who cares about you would do, right? So the fact that Donald Trump doesn't want the Epstein file to be released baffles me, because Jeffrey Epstein, despite his shenanigans and being the horrible person that he was, right? She said, Ghislaine said, I don't think they were close friends. Well, I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. We know right there that was a choreographed statement based on the email that we now got to witness today. On the same day, November 12th, 2025, right? When the government was reopened, they released this email. Or these emails, should I say. And see, but it says, but the newly released email suggests Maxwell was aware of Trump being at Epstein's house, at least as of 2011. After Epstein in the email referenced someone spending hours at my house with Trump. Who was it? What were they doing? Not to say that they were doing anything nefarious. But does Donald Trump remember that? Because Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell surely do, because they talked about it in an email in 2011. Oh, this is no hoax, man. This is the real thing, man. This is the real deal. The cover-up was attempted. Damn. But them pesky facts and them goddamn emails come out, man, and guess what? Destroy all of that shit. Listen, she said, what? I have been thinking about that. They tried to contact Maxwell's attorney, didn't immediately respond for a request for comment. But ladies and gentlemen, check. She said, I like what she said. She said, I don't think they were close friends. You see, when she says, I don't think they were close friends, she's trying to disassociate Donald Trump from being close to Jeffrey Epstein. Right? Right? In this August of 2025 testimony. But check this out. I'm going to take you back because, and I got to run it to you like this, right? I'm going to take you back, right? She said, I don't think they were close. But check it out. Check it out, y'all. Look at this. This is when, in 2011, the heat was on Jeffrey Epstein in the situation involving him going to jail and doing a little bit of time in Florida at that time. And Jeffrey Epstein says, I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. The victim, not the person, not the individual. Name is redacted. The victim, whoever she was, spent hours at my house with Donald Trump. Hours. Right? He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. Meaning by the police chief or anybody else, etc. He says, I'm 75% there. Right? But when she says that Donald Trump, I don't think they were close friends. I don't believe that they were close friends, right? This email right here says something totally different. Because you got to look at what Jeffrey Epstein was trying to do for his friend, his close friend, Donald Trump, knowing that he was running for president and knowing that they was going to come after him in regards to their relationship. Go over it again. I think you should let him hang himself. Michael Wolff is telling Jeffrey Epstein that he thinks that he should let Donald Trump hang himself if he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house. Right? Not what they're saying, but what they're not saying. I think you should let him hang himself if he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house. Then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. Valuable PR and political currency. Think about it. They're talking about political currency, right? That gives you a one-up because you know the truth, Jeffrey. You know he been on the plane. You know he been to the house. So if he lie about it, then that gives you what? Valuable PR and political currency. If he's elected and he wins the what? The presidency. Listen, he said you can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Now, how could Jeffrey Epstein save Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen? How could he save him? He could say, no, he's never been on the plane. No, he's never been to my house. No, he's never been none of those places. Me and Donald Trump are great friends, and so on and so on and so forth. That's what Michael Wolff is talking about. You got to read between the lines. He said, man, if shit, I think you should let him hang. I'm gonna give it to you in the layman's terms, like they say, man, I think you should let him hang himself, man. You know what I mean? If he say he ain't been on the plane or at the house, and then that gives you valuable PR, you know what I mean, and political currency if he lie about it, right? You know the truth, right? Shit. And then he said, well, shit. Well, you can hang him in a way that politically generates a positive benefit for you, if you want to. Or on the flip side, shit, if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, right? Come in and say, hey, man, no, he ain't never been to the house. He ain't never been on the plane or whatever. Or whatever they could come up with, right? Generating a debt a debt where Donald Trump would owe Jeffrey Epstein? Of course. It is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey Epstein. And so now they're pondering over what Donald Trump would say when asked by CNN, right? You say, well, it's possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey Epstein is a great guy and he has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, right? Political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. Get it? Amazing. Amazing. This is behind the scenes crafting of blackmailing and having one up on somebody and knowing something about somebody and being able to hold it as a debt, you know what I mean? Or political currency as they call it, right? But then look, on December 15th, 2015, 11:52 p.m., Jeffrey Epstein wrote about a close friend that he, considered Donald Trump. Jeffrey Epstein wrote what? If we were able to craft an answer for him, you know what I mean? Because I like that guy. He my friend, we've done a lot of things together, hanging out, whatever, right? What do you think it should be? That's somebody unlike what Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell said, I don't think they were close friends. This email right here says something different. If we were able to craft an answer for him, for who? For Donald Trump. What do you think it would be? It should be. Right? So you see the bottom email from Michael Wolff came before the top one on December 15th. Michael Wolff sent his email, right? He sent his email on at 8 p.m. Michael Wolff was talking about the CNN thing, right? I hear CNN planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in scrum afterwards, right? And then Jeffrey Epstein says, well, if we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? So Michael Wolff was heavy in the game with it. He knew a lot of shit. So when they saying Michael Wolff don't know nothing, man, man, you can imagine all the other communications that he might have. But like I said, this here was released by the Epstein estate. It's some powerful shit, man. And it's sickening, man. It's sickening. Donald Trump is sitting in the White House trying to call this a hoax, talking about President Obama and Obamacare. Man, people's health care is about to triple, man. And like I said, once again, the song, he's out of touch. He's out of time. Right? That's what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump is out of touch. He's out of touch with the everyday needs of everyday Americans. Donald Trump has never, I don't think he probably ever has been to the grocery store in the last 50 years to understand the price of groceries and how high that is and how that affects everyday people, ladies and gentlemen. They took off the SNAP benefits, 42 million people. Some states basically tried to upload money on the SNAP cards while the government was shut down. Do you know that they went to court trying to stop the states from actually uploading money to the SNAP benefits cards? So what was it to Donald Trump that the states were going to do that to help out the people of that state? That shouldn't have meant nothing. But evidently it did. You have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump grew up rich. He grew up privileged. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. But it's something wrong with it when you don't understand the needs of everyday people and you lack empathy. You lack the ability to feel the need of people who, don't have as much as you do. Weren't as lucky as you were. You know what I mean? Like Tupac said, push, push, push. Gimme, push, push, push. That mentality. When Tupac was talking about Donald Trump. You see? So one may sit down and see, when you talk about God, when you talk about karma, when you talk about doing people wrong, and like I said, I understand that, there was an attempt on Donald Trump's life, but that wasn't done by black people. That wasn't done by Mexicans. That was done by a Caucasian man, right? It shouldn't have been done at all, but I say that to say this, the Doge thing, the DEI thing, and all of what's been going on, and only letting the white South Africans in, and all of these things right here. It's blatant, outright racism. And so, with all of the things and the culmination of what's been going on and how it's been done and how it's been, the shutting down of the government, it's the Republic. People don't care about no Republican or Democrat. People want to feed their family, man. They want to take care of their family. And so now, we understand that most of the things, like I said, Donald Trump has been convicted in the court of law, in the city that he called his home and built businesses and hotels and all of those things with a jury of his peers of 34 felonies. And he wants everybody to believe that that was a hoax and people were against him and it was this and it was that. Right? You tell that to Geronimo Pratt when Johnny Cochran got him freed from prison after doing 27 years for being a political prisoner. Right? You tell that to the brother who just got freed 2 weeks ago after doing 17 years in prison. You tell that to the same people that Donald Trump, the Central Park Five. You tell that to them brothers who he wished death upon. You got to understand that God is present, man. God is present, man, and He's watching. You may have power over certain things and be able to do certain things, but just like the checks and balances with the court system and the judges and all of those things, you're not going to win it all. And you know one thing an OG told me one time, and this is true for Donald Trump at this particular point. He said, man, your future look good. He said, but your background is killing you. And that's what this Epstein thing is. Bullshit catching up, man. You see it. You see it. And so, like I said, at the end of the day, and this is not about hate for Donald Trump. This is an observation being made by people who perhaps voted for him, perhaps didn't vote for him. Right? It didn't matter to me when Donald Trump was president the first time, other than the fact that he said that 3 million people voted illegally for Hillary, voted illegally for Hillary Clinton. Ladies and gentlemen, if that were true, then that would have made Donald Trump's presidency illegitimate. Because even though he had won, the process itself would have been an illegitimate process by him admitting and saying that if it were actually true. We seen what happened on January 6th. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump has professed to being a what he said, a law and order president. Man, he pardoned 1,500 people, man, that stormed the Capitol building in which people died, man. 1,500 people. 1,500 people. Police officers were attacked. Capitol Police were attacked. Right? You got to make it make sense. And people sit back and they be like, yeah, it's this, it's that. Like, man, look, you could do what you want to do. You could say what you want to say. But all I'm going to say is that we see you when you're saying what you're saying. So stand on what you're saying when you're saying it. Like I'm standing on what I'm saying right now. So we know now, Ghislaine Maxwell lied. She lied and she tried to cover up for Trump. It didn't work. These emails exposed that, ladies and gentlemen. Point blank, period. And I'm going to show you one more. Check this out, because this one you haven't seen. Watch this. This is powerful. Watch this one. Check this out. Ladies and gentlemen, from Jeffrey Epstein to Michael Wolff. Once again, this is from the Epstein estate. From Jeffrey Epstein to Michael Wolff. January 31st, 2019, at approximately 10:47 p.m. Right? Victim, Mar-a-Lago. We know Trump owns Mar-a-Lago. Victim, Mar-a-Lago. Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member, ever. Of course, he knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop. Right? Now, when he says that Trump said he asked me to resign, never a member ever. What that means is Donald Trump said that he asked Jeffrey Epstein to resign from being a member of Mar-a-Lago, right? But Jeffrey Epstein is telling Michael Wolff, like, yo, I was never even a member, ever. Why would he, like I said, why would Jeffrey Epstein have to be a member of, so now, once again, so this is another lie, according to what Jeffrey Epstein is saying. Jeffrey Epstein said, Trump said he asked me to resign. He said, never, ever a member. I was never a member, ever. Why would Jeffrey Epstein have to be a member of Mar-a-Lago? Most people that pay to be members of Mar-a-Lago are basically outsiders. Jeffrey Epstein was Donald Trump's friend. We know that now. Preferably one of his closest friends, if you will. Right? From all intents and purposes, pictures, emails, and things, and what we're seeing right now. So, according to this email, Jeffrey Epstein, like I said, and that's easily found out. They could pull up records and show them what Jeffrey Epstein signed up and paid money to become a member and also remain a member of Mar-a-Lago. Victim, Mar-a-Lago. Redaction, right? And then the most disturbing part is, of course he knew about the girls. He asked Ghislaine to stop. Now, what did he ask Ghislaine Maxwell to stop? Once again, you see what I'm saying? So this is he asked. So Jeffrey Epstein is admitting that in 2019, while talking to emailing to Michael Wolff, that of course he knew about the girls, because Michael Wolff. Now see, this is the cold part. These emails right here are just a partial piece of a gang of other emails. You get it? Because this email right here is, from Jeffrey Epstein to Michael Wolff. Now, can you imagine what Michael Wolff asked Jeffrey Epstein in order for Jeffrey Epstein to respond? Basically saying that Trump said he asked me to resign. Never ever remember. Of course he knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop. Now, what did he ask Ghislaine to stop? I won't attempt to act like I know. I don't know. This is just what the email said. So can you imagine all of the other emails that they have from Jeffrey Epstein? This came, like I said, this didn't come from the Department of Justice. This came from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. ladies and gentlemen. And you can best believe that Michael Wolff also has all of these email communications. And as you can see, right? Please note, the information contained in this communication is confidential, may be attorney-client privilege, may constitute inside information, and is intended for only the use of the addressee. This is the property of JEE. You know what JEE means, right? The Jeffrey Epstein estate. Unauthorized use, disclosure, copying of this communication or for any part thereof is strictly prohibited, may be unlawful if you have received this communication, but since they released it, right, to the public, right, none of that applies at this particular point. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, this ain't good, man. This ain't good. Like I said, once again, man, you can only, like I said, all of the things they say about Obama, all of the things he said about Joe Biden, and I don't care about people being Republican or Democrat, right? As long as when you go into the office of the presidency, governor, mayor, whatever, as long as you try to leave it better than you found it. And at this situation right now, Donald Trump has been tearing America apart, man. I get the divide and conquer tactics. I get that. I get that. I understand all of that, right? You know? But even with all the money in the world, it can't save your soul. It can't save you from getting sick. It can't save you from dying. You know what I mean? We've seen some of the richest people. You know, you can go back and look at Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, who created Apple. You know, may he rest in peace. And nothing bad about Steve Jobs. I'm just saying, he was worth $8-9 billion when he died. He couldn't give a doctor not $1 more for another day. Right? And so when you think about being able to do some good and be a blessing to people, you know, trying to make the United States stronger, a more better, or should I say a better place, a perfect union, and all of the things that you possibly can do, Donald Trump has failed, man. He get on TV every day and he lie. And it's like, why? For what? You got it all. Or what appears to be it all. Right? But I guess the person inside of him, for whatever reason, I won't even try to diagnose it. Doesn't believe that. Doesn't believe that. You know? And when you dealing with God and people suffering, and you know, you lacking empathy and not caring, and you know, then once everything comes back around, you want all of the credit for it. And then when it ain't going good, you're trying to blame somebody else. Oh, it was Joe Biden. Joe Biden did it. And not accepting responsibility for your actions. Please don't come in. I'm live. So like I said, once again, when we deal with the dynamics of what this is and what this really means, ladies and gentlemen, it is what it is. Like I said, I appreciate your time. Hopefully we can learn something from this, man. And but yeah, a shitstorm has been created, ladies and gentlemen. Your boy Delray, straight gang.
Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.